Welcome to the Tanya Acker Show. Welcome to the show. PC Williams is here. She is the costume designer for this fantastically funny show on Peacock Plus. The show is called We Are Lady Parts. It's about a Muslim women's punk rock band, which is not a storyline that one encounters on a regular basis. It's a really, really funny show. PC Williams is the costume designer, and the clothes, the wardrobe in this show, I think is really a character in and of itself. That's something that PC and I talked about. But we also talked about how she got where she is today. She is living the dream. How did she get to that dream? PC reminded me that we all have some magic. We all have to remember the magic that we have. And we also have to remember to take that magic and work really hard. Here I am with PC Williams, costume designer for We Are Lady Parts. It's a very, very funny show. You can see it on Peacock Plus. Go watch the show and listen to my conversation with PC Williams. Here we are. Welcome to the podcast. PC Williams, costume designer for the phenomenal show streaming on Peacock Plus. We Are Lady Parts. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So the show is just great. We started the chat before.
It's fun.
It really is. It reminds me, just first and foremost, I feel like people need a better way to find all of these great shows on all of the great streaming platforms, because I was so excited to learn about it. The show is about an all-female Muslim punk band. It is hilarious, incredible cast, incredible writing. You are the costume designer, and let's just jump right into that, because what I found is that this show really challenges the assumptions that one might make about a Muslim woman, a Muslim woman in traditional or semi-traditional dress. That feels very intentional. Talk to me about that, PC.
Yeah, I think as women, we are challenging so many stereotypes of what we're meant to be, right? Like, what are you meant to look like as a career woman? What are you meant to look like as a mother? What are you meant to look like as a woman with religious beliefs and values? And kind of this show, to me, was like the perfect space to blend the cultural identity, but also with like a modern, current way of thinking. And so for me, these young women were showing you that there isn't one way to be a Muslim woman. I can be a Muslim woman in a niqab. I could also be a Muslim woman with like tattoos and half shaved hair. And it doesn't make how I present doesn't make me any more or any less in touch with my faith. And I think that's what we kind of wanted to do. Nida was incredibly intentional with her writing, and all the actors were very intentional in the ways in which they presented these women to us. So I think that together we sort of curated a world which allowed us to make the statements that we made.
Well, it's interesting because you definitely make these statements. It seems, and I say this as someone of the Christian faith, we're more willing to admit of diversity and variety amongst Christians than we might be amongst Muslim women. So you're not that surprised if you say you're a woman who says, yes, I read the Bible, I believe in Jesus, I have a tattoo, I do this and that. We're not as surprised when we see that diversity amongst Christians. We're very surprised. And I'm speaking for me. I'll just speak for myself. It is more surprising and refreshing, frankly. How did you get involved with this project?
I met Nida, who's our writer and director, and Surian, our EP, for lunch. A friend of mine, Sarai Gilani, is a production designer. She was already in conversations with Nida about various projects. And she was like, I just think you guys should connect. And that first meeting was the beginning of what I consider to be a building of a family. We've done that. We've gone on to our film together, which, is currently testing in the US. We've got, this family that we're building is beautiful. So I was introduced to Nida, and we kind of have a very similar approach to stuff. Like, I'm not trying to present something that's not real. I'm not trying to present something that's that doesn't exist. I'm trying to say the world we live in isn't as binary as we think if we're just willing to look outside of like our square. And I spend so much time just like watching people. And I spent 10 years teaching at a university, an arts degree at St. Martin's. It's like coming across these young, amazing minds and who are curious. And that has enabled me to have the outlook I have when I begin to design costumes for whichever projects it is that I'm designing them for.
I was going to ask you about that and your process. The costume really is, and I watched the show knowing I was going to speak to you, so I really had my eyes on what folks were wearing, but the whole show is just it's very consuming. It's really, really funny. It's funny. It is so funny. I alluded to this, but there's a scene. So one of these characters, one of these Muslim women in the punk band drives for a rideshare company. And as she's described in another publication, she has road rage. She has some anger management issues. And there's a scene where, she says what I think a lot of people would like to say to folks who find themselves in situations where, they're kind of being taunted relentlessly. But, I say all that to say that if you had just seen this character dressed as she was, separate from, but there still might be an intention, there still might be a temptation to judge her just by virtue of the fact that, she's wearing a headscarf. Like, she's a Muslim woman who covers up.
Yeah.
But she will tell you off. She will tell you off in uncertain terms.
And she'll tell it to you straight.
She'll tell it to you straight.
Aisha's costumes actually are very similar to what Juliet, who plays Aisha, wears. So Juliet is British Iraqi, and she has the most coolest style, like the girl just like walks into a room and you're like, wow, you notice her. It's like dark, it's sexy, it's Arabic, it's like, she doesn't wear a head covering herself, but she has this amazing big hair, but she's quite modest in what she wears. She just has really cool clothes. And so when we were figuring out what the aesthetic of Aisha was, there was no point in me trying to rewrite who this badass was, because I was being presented with someone who was authentically a badass. So I spent loads of time on her Instagram and found images of her that I loved. And me and my team just shopped to those boards, shopped in thinking about what would she wear. And we sent her, this was during COVID, so we weren't able to do fittings as normal, but we sent her like 5 suitcases of clothes and was like, have fun and just send me pictures of what you like and what you want to wear. And so she'd sent me like selfies in her mirror, just like, this looks kind of cool, or I'm really into this, or I like these trousers, but I'm not. And we just made looks organically together in that sort of way. And it was a very exciting way to design, because it was different to how I was designing for the other characters. Someone like Bisma, who's played by a lady called Faith. Faith is me. She's my sisters. She's my cousins. We're British Nigerian, we were born in the UK, but our families aren't from here. Our families are from Nigeria. My dad is from Guyana. My Bisma is me. She's my sisters. She's my cousins. We're British. We're like born in London, but we aren't from London. We're British Nigerian. So our cultural identity, something that it's drilled into you as a kid. You go to all the weddings, you wear traditional clothes to. You wear traditional clothes. When you go to like family parties, you listen to Nigerian music, you listen to Guyanese music and Guyanese foods, you eat Guyanese food and stuff. And when I was designing her costumes, it was really important to me that we got a true sense of how close she was to her African identity, but also how close she was to her London identity. And a lot of it is like pairing the London identity with your cultural identity and presenting that to the viewers through our show.
There's a scene where Amina, one of the characters, I guess, who's the last one to join the band. Originally she had other plans, and then she decides to join the band. But there's a scene where she sort of has this transformative moment and she walks into her closet surrounded by all of these clothes. And again, it just reminded me that the wardrobe here really is, it's almost another character. It's making a statement about these women and who they are. Tell us how you became involved in costume design. And more importantly, for a lot of my listeners, tell us how you were able to make a living at it, because you are living many, many people's dream.
You know, it's not lost on me every day how lucky I am that this gets to be the life that I live, you know? I spend a lot of time practicing gratitude. I'm living my dream, and so many people don't get to live theirs. And so I'm very conscious and aware of that. And it makes me even more hungry to stay here. I went to an arts university and I studied design, textile design. I specialize in knitwear. And then I came out of that with my degree and went on to style and was styling musicians. So everyone from like Stormzy to Lil Kim to M&EK, Waka Waka Flame, like just working in music. So I was doing lots of music styling. And a friend of mine who I went to school with, like high school with, you guys would say, she was doing directing and we just started collaborating and I just started doing all the costumes for her stuff, whether it was commercials or films. And I just love storytelling. So I kind of I've not gone down the route of this is I'm only a music stylist, or I'm only a sportswear stylist, or I'm only a costume designer. I've kind of gone down the route of whichever opportunities come my way that feel true to me and what I want to say and who I am. Those are the opportunities that I take on. Now, it might be that I am one day doing a film and the next day working with Nike on like a sportswear campaign. Those two things feed into me as a creative and as a storyteller, as an individual. And so I shouldn't let the fact that they're in separate realms stop me from doing what it was that I was born to do, you know? So I think that's being open to opportunities is something that you need to take with both hands if you're wanting to be a creative. Also, like you think about it, creativity now, the jobs that are around today weren't necessarily around 15 years ago, you know? And so like you're constantly, we're creating and developing new ways of working. So you get to really curate the space that works for you and define what that will be. And whether that means that you have 5 things that you're really good at, or you have 1, it's about you as an individual and working that out, you know? So I would say that's how I've managed to make a living from this. Also, it's fun, but it's my job. And if I'm not making a living with my job, then it's a hobby. And so when it moves into the idea of it's no longer a hobby, but it's actually what I need to pay my mortgage, I need to pay my studio fees, what it needs to pay my team, I need to make sure that I'm consistently working at being better than I was yesterday in order to keep progressing and keep doing the things that I want to do. And, you know, sometimes I take on jobs that aren't necessarily the most fun, but it's the right thing to do because this is a business and I've got to think about it like that, you know? And I think sometimes people get a bit lost in the idea of having this really fun Instagram life. And the second it becomes difficult, it's like, oh God, no, this isn't what I signed up for. And it's like, bro, that's the job. You know, that's what we're here to do. Life is like a box of chocolates. One day you're going to have something sweet. The next day you're going to have something sour. But each time your taste buds are developing and you're learning what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and how to take that into the next thing, you know? So yeah, not being scared of hard work, I think, is also how I'm able to earn a living.
What was your first big break? When did you know that you were on a path that was going to allow you to be able to make a living from living the dream?
When I joined Stormzy's team for his album was the first big thing I think of. That means that the other breaks weren't so big, but they were. When I did my first feature film, I was 25 and I had no costume experience. So that was a huge break. But when I joined Stormzy's team, I went from doing something that I was like, yeah, I can do this, to being like, oh no, I have something here that's, I can't put my finger on, but I know in my gut, it's something. In that moment, you know, I remember being like 27 and like earning like no money, which is standard. If you work in creative industries in London, you come out of your degree and you are basically poor for 5 years. But I remember the time when I went from being being able to pay for my studio and also having money left. And that was like, oh, wow. Okay, this is, because you have to invest in yourself, right? So you can make money, but you're putting it right back into what it is that you're doing. So you don't really see any return, like financial return for a little while, right? But the second it goes from you're making money and you're able to reinvest in yourself and then you have some left over, that for me was when I joined Stormzy's team. And I was like, okay, I'm now being able to see this as like the business model makes sense to me.
I'm also interested in what you said about being 25 and getting a job on a feature film with no previous experience. That takes a certain degree of confidence and security. And I want you to explain to people how you walk into a room and go get something that maybe you never had a taste of before. How did you do that? How did you, with no experience, go in and get a job on a movie?
So I had experience, but in commercials. I didn't have any experience in film, long form film, short form films, and had none of that, right? I genuinely believe there is only one of me. It's as simple as that. I walk into every room and I know it. There's one of me. If this is mine, it's mine. And it's not a cockiness where I can walk into a room. I haven't got to put in the work. I don't have to put in the hours. And no. I put in the hours. I make the boards. I prepare myself. But I walk in with a confidence that's outside of me. It's bigger than me. And so when I walk into a space and I'm presented with opportunities, I'm humble enough to know that, if this is my job, these are the holes that need to be plugged in order for me to succeed in this space. And that's what I do. I get it. And then I fill in those holes with the right people to join the team to make that be what it is. I go into a job like Powder Room with no experience. I'm hiring people with experience. What do I need to do to make this a success? Here are my ideas, but how do they become a reality? Now, if you go and hire your mates who have as little experience as you, of course, it's going to be a massive, I don't know if you can swear on this show, but a shit show, But like if you go and you plug it in with people who have experience, people who want to pass that knowledge on, people who really enjoy their jobs. And this, because it's a different things to go with people who have experience, but who want what you have. It's another thing to find people who have experience and genuinely love the space they're in, because you can't be working in competition with your team. You've got to be working together, going towards that same goal. So you need to plug it in with people who love what they do and have no desire to do what you do, because then together you make this beautiful whole piece, right? And there's things that I now have, really lucky, we've got like a breakdown team. I have no desire to go and be a breakdown artist, but I love what a breakdown artist brings to a job. And I want to learn about it and I want to understand it. Those are the kinds of people you need to bring in when you get these opportunities, because they're the ones who help push you to the next stage of your career.
It almost sounds like, you talk about building a professional team in a way, where it almost sounds like they're a bit of a family, a functional family, I should say. It sounds like a functional family. What was your family like? You said father was Nigerian.
They really are.
Your mother was Guyanese, or maybe I transposed that. But you grew up in London.
My father's Guyanese and my mum's Nigerian, and they met on a bus in London. I've actually never known them to be together, which is a really interesting way, considering I never consider myself to have been brought up in like a single parent home. They were in like beautiful at co-parenting and teaching me and my siblings about like love. My parents, we lived with them each half of the time, half of the week with one, half of the week with the other. But both of my parents have always, my mum, they both worked with like young people in like development, but they were both also self-employed. So they've always my dad has always worked for himself, and my mum has gone between working in social work to working for herself to being a therapist. So they're the kind of people where they know what they bring to a table. And so they instill that sense of belief in each of us. And so we've each gone into the world with this sense of, I'm meant to be here. And as I get older and I work with more people, I realize that that's not necessarily a common thing, which is a shame, because I think we're all meant to be here. And the more you believe that to your core, the more successful you are at life, because you're doubting yourself less, right? When it comes to my functional family of my team, we spend 12 hours of every day at a minimum together. You got to like these people, otherwise your days are pretty rubbish. And so I make sure that when we're growing up, it's like people that we like and we want to hang out with, and we seem to go from job to job together, core team, tending just to work as a group, sticking together. Where it's beyond work. It's now we're embedded in one another's lives, but in a really healthy, I've got your back. And because I have your back, you go above and beyond. And because I know you have my back, I go above and beyond. We're not doing to get, we're doing because it makes the team stronger. Yeah, I'm really lucky.
Were your parents supportive of the notion of you pursuing a career in the arts?
I'm the kind of person that I don't really tend to listen very well. So...
So it didn't matter.
I don't feel like there was much choice. I think my Nigerian family were like, she's going to study arts. What is she going to do with this kind of degree? Jumai, why isn't she a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer? And I was just like, I'm just done with reading books and being told what to do. Now, though, they're the ones who'll be like, have you seen what she's done? She's just done this and she's just done. It's very interesting, the change in tone. But my parents, to be fair, have always been, when I was thinking about colleges, and I was like, I don't want to go to college. And my mum was like, no, you should go to college. And if you go to an arts college, maybe you'll be happier there. And she was the one who found the college that I went to. My dad has always been like, you're fulfilling so many of, like, my grandma, when she emigrated to the UK from Guyana, was a cleaner and worked in a seamstress store. And he's like, these things that your grandma couldn't even have imagined, you are now doing. I think my not just my recent generations, but I think ancestrally, the arts are something that runs deep in the blood of my ancestors and is manifesting through me in a way where I just feel proud to carry a legacy that I'm not 100% sure of in terms of facts, but just feel.
You gave me chills when you talked about what your father said. I mean, if you really think about the magnitude and enormity of your grandmother or great-grandmother and my great-grandmother looking at us right now, it really does give me chills. P.C. Williams, costume designer for We Are Lady Parts. What is next for you? What's the next project?
I'm currently on a project called The End We Start From, which is Jodie Comer's new movie, being directed by a lady called Mahalia Bello. I'm very excited about that. We're 3 weeks out from filming, so it's all a bit like, but it's going to get there. And it's very different from the things I've done. The last two movies I did, the one with Nida from Lady Parts, it's called Polite Society. And that's currently testing, I think, in the States. So waiting to see how that goes. But it's basically locked. And then I just finished a film with a director called Kibwe Tavares, which is based in like 2044 London, a dystopian future. Very me as a girl from East London, being able to depict how I imagine our world to be, but not so far away from where we are now. And that's with Netflix.
You mean like 2 weeks from now?
Exactly.
2 weeks from now.
Oh my God.
It's hot in London. So, I heard it's very, very hot there.
There's a lot happening.
It's very hot.
You know what's really interesting? The film I'm currently on now, the one with Jodie Comer, is actually about climate change. And a lot of what we're seeing in the script the last week has just been a reflection of. And I find it really strange when I have conversations with people and they're refusing to take heed to the fact that we have a lot of work to do to keep our planet being the planet that we can exist on. And so it's really nice in this moment to create a film that's a reflection of that. And hopefully people, like, did you watch that film, Don't Look Up?
Yes. Yes, I did.
I love
it. But you know what? It's sometimes, it was almost like too close for comfort. It just is too close. It's real.
Yeah.
It's a bit real.
It's another thing like that. So I'm excited. It's a good time. It's a good time to be Miss PC Williams.
All of those projects sound phenomenal. Jodie Comer is another one where almost everything I've seen her in, her wardrobe makes a statement of its own. So that'll be really fun.
It's really fun. It's also really scary because it's probably the design spectrum I'm trying to curate here is a lot subtler than the things that I usually lean on, which is like colors and textures and things which have life, and I'm talking about a world which is life. We're in a disaster, and how we don't have as much access. I know it's I feel like there are big boots that I know that are in the room. I'm just waiting for my shoes to fill them. But it's coming. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. It's just different. It's my mind is having to I'm being challenged in what I can do and the ways I can do it and the ways that ring true to who I am as a creative and as a storyteller. And that's, the only thing you can ask for.
The difference between creating something dystopian and dark as opposed to kind of indulging the brightness and the vivid life that you normally do in your work. That does sound challenging, and I still can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. PC Williams, costume designer. We are Lady Parts. Thank you so much for being here. I do hope you'll come back. I really, really do. I've had such a great time.
I will. When the films come out, I'll come back and we can have like a catch up of what it's been like in the last
year. I would love that. Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Done. You heard it here. She's coming back.
Yeah.
Thanks, PC.
Thank you.